Thank you for listening to the New Pitts Mortuary's Morning Gospel Hour. The New Pitts Mortuary is dedicated to serve and remember us in your time of need. We can be reached at 414-447-6000. We are more than a business. We are a ministry.
Serving the black community for nearly 60 years.
This is the most important.
This is Milwaukee's Voice
And a sound blueprint.
860 AM and 106.5 FM. WNOV. The views and opinions expressed on this show do not reflect that of the staff and management of WNOV and W293CX 106.5 FM Courier Communications Milwaukee, but are the sole comments of the host and guest of this particular show.
Greetings and good morning, Milwaukee. You are listening to Community Heartbeat presented by Outreach Community Health Centers. Not just a show, this is a movement dedicated to bringing our community together through wellness, keeping your heart pumping with positivity. Happy Friday. Listen, this has been the longest week of the year, hasn't it? This has been the longest week. I've been putting the show together for a minute. So I have some great topics, two great guests coming up in the second hour. But I just wanted to pause since this is the first show since the inauguration. And I like to think that I'm an alchemist. I'm an alchemistic optimistic, which means I try to look at things from the most positive way. I try to look at things to figure out how we can move forward in the best way. And I'm stuck on this one, Milwaukee. So talk back to me this morning, 444-5250. I want to hear from you. Two things that we're going to do. We're going to keep our mental health on point. Okay. So we're not going to let negativity win. That's number one. Number two is we are going to figure out how to take up our post and move our community forward in whatever way that is. As I was thinking about how do I find positivity in this, it's hard. It's extremely hard. But here's my train of thought. My grandmother passed away last year at 100. She would have been 101 had she lived a couple more months. Her mother lived 106 years. So just in my lineage, that's 200 years. Now, we have been going through very similar conditions, albeit a little more quiet for the past 400 years. I said that to say we will and we shall get through it. It's going to be hard, though. But this is where I hope that after this next 4 years, we are all more politically engaged because it matters. Now, at Outreach Community Health Centers, we are a federally qualified health center, which means we are filling the gap for people who cannot afford health care, cannot afford quality health care. And we step into that for our homeless and unhoused population, for those that are without insurances. We fill that gap. For me, trying to find the bright spot, that's what it means to be American. Right. So I've been trying to think about how do you spin it? How do you make it make sense? It does not make sense. It It will not make sense. And as I think about my grandmother, my great grandmother, her grandmother, we have been through it. We will get through it, but it will take all minds on the same thing. Now, God don't like ugly. That's a huge piece, right? And so I can only imagine how he feels about evil. Okay. One of the components that struck me closest is that the first order of business was not, let's rally around Americans, the ones who have lost power, the ones who have just endured a snowstorm. It's snowing in places where they're ill-equipped. That's causing death and destruction. Then we got the other half of the country that's literally on fire. Every other day, there's another fire burning out. And your first order of business was not to help secure those folks. That to me seems a bit un-American.
Not only that, but your first order is you want to get people out of the country. You
Right.
want to get diversity out of high place
Yeah.
workplace, high job workplace. So you want to get rid of all of that instead of your first orders declaring an emergency for those people out in California and figuring out a way to come together so we can get these fires under control.
Now,
you don't care nothing about that.
The irony of that is the firefighters that are out there fighting are y'all. I've been going through it this week, so we're gonna share it here. The firefighters that are currently fighting these fires are not only your regular firefighters, not only your volunteer crew, but they're convicted criminals, right? That are out making 16 some cents a day, from 16 cents to $1. So I'm a history buff. I went back down the rabbit hole. If you look at most of our capital cities in this country, especially in the South, were built through convict labor. So we either have to decide here and now if we're going to look at history and accept history as is, not revisionist, or are we going to just ignore it? I just need to know either way. Now, when we talk meritocracy, right? So that's, you advance based on your merit. Do you know that African American women in this country are the most educated? So if we're going to do this, let's go on ahead and do it, right? If we're talking, we excel based on our merit, then African American Black women are the most educated in this country, right? Or we just admitted something else. Just come out and say it. So we will move forward with positivity. I know it's hard to find it. We're going to dig in the crates for it, y'all. And I'll leave with this piece of this thought. Growing up, I've shared I was a voracious reader. I love books. I love to get into history. And I used to ask myself, who are those people in the picture that were shouting at Ruby Bridges, a baby girl, walking up to a school, integrating? I think Ruby is in her early 70s, so this is not ancient history. Who are these grown women, grown men that are shouting on a child who has no idea? Like at 6 or 7, you have no idea what's happening. You don't know why these strangers are shouting in your face. I got my answer with this inauguration. And so that's what we're going to do. We are going to keep ourselves healthy. We are going to keep ourselves well in the midst of. As diversity, inclusion, belonging become something that is taboo, let us not forget that for millennia, right, thousands and thousands and thousands of years, diversity has been what we do. So we're going to move forward. Wellness, positivity, that is Community Heartbeat. So today we're going to be talking about cervical cancer. And here's how this is connected. We talked briefly last show about Henrietta Lacks. So Henrietta Lacks was a woman who had suffered from cervical cancer, had gone into receive medical treatment for pain. Cells were taken from Henrietta Lacks. And because of the cancerous growth, it was like a spectacle for the medical community. How are her cells growing so quickly? How are how is this happening? This is magical. We've never seen cells grow like this, but they were cancerous. So they took her cells without her knowledge and continued to grow them. Her cells now affect everything in medicine, and I'm talking globally. So this is not just here. This is around the world. So if you are studying medicine in Russia, if you are studying medicine in China, if you are studying medicine in any of those places, you are studying Henrietta Lacks's cells, and you can Google it, HeLa cells, and the impact that they've had. So I'll wrap the entire thought with this. Sometimes you believe that you are hurting someone. I believe that the physicians that took care of Henrietta Lacks did not have her best interest in mind, right? They weren't looking out for this African-American woman. They were interested in the science piece. And if that hurt her, it didn't really matter. Her family was then blocked out of the financial compensation of study of her cells. So you would think that, hey, okay, you're making money off of something you retrieved from my body. You would think you would at least, put $5 back in my hand since you're making money hand over fist. That was not the case. So her family, she died pretty much, I won't say destitute because we are richer in many different ways, but died without the financial compensation she was supposed to get. Her family fought for years for proper burial, for that financial compensation. Didn't get it. Her cells are immortal. She is in places that her feet have never touched. So I challenge you, Milwaukee, to put a different spin on it. It's at the times where people try to extinguish us the most that we become immortal, that we shine the brightest. Had those adults not shouted on Ruby Bridges like that, they wouldn't be immortalized in history books as being just that. Had we had a compassionate transfer of power on Monday, which said, let's rally around each other and protect each other, because that's American. That's patriotic. It's supposed to be America versus everybody, but that's not the case. So I challenge you to reason over the next 4 years. We had an opportunity to get hot, to get mad, to get frustrated, to push everything off the table. But I challenge you to push back with reason and thought. If someone trying to extinguish your power, your flame, is the mission, but by doing that, they elevate you in places that you never thought you would be, then that served its purpose. I know Black America will come out better, stronger, because that's how we roll. That's what we do. But let's make sure that we document this moment in time so that we never forget it. When we think about health, when we think about wellness, it is on all of us, Americans, to do it well. Now, before we head out to this next break, we got a couple more moments. Before that, I want you to think about a couple other things, because again, I've gone through the whole gauntlet of emotions, from frustration to everything. Elon Musk is African, right? And so if we're talking chess moves, nothing moves without Africa. I mean, and you can frame it however you want it. That's what it is. That's African. Egypt, also in Africa. South Africa is in Africa. Okay? So I'm going to start with that. If we're talking American and patriotic, then to elevate someone from Africa, you got to kind of think about that. If it were someone with a darker skin tone, would they have been elevated? And I struggle, because I can appreciate Elon's contribution to science. I can appreciate that. Everything else, we're going to leave that at the door. But I can appreciate the levels of science. But the hypocrisy of it. Now, I'm just going to touch on the Roman salute real quick. We're going to spend 5 seconds, 10 seconds. Rome fell. Rome fell as an empire. So I know that's not the behavior we want to model, right? So I'm just going to leave that there for introspection, for conversation. Rome fell. So please don't try to sell me. Don't try to sell me on a Roman salute. And then finally, let us get back into understanding the cycles of history. For me, that means looking at the cycle of healthcare, looking at the cycle of policy. This is the time to be in your senators' faces, in your House of Representatives' faces, because that is how our law works. Our law does not work if you are upset in your living room and just cussing at everybody. That's not how this thing works. It's what is the policy that goes forth. And if everything that I've shared this morning is true, we've lived through this. Our grandmas have given us the historical reference that we know how to move in these spaces. If trying to extinguish our light has never worked over thousands and thousands of years, 4 years ain't gonna do it either. If we know history from the global perspective that we espouse this America versus everybody, but whoever comes to the table with the biggest duffel bag gets the ear. Well, now we know how to move forward, right? So maybe the flex moving forward is not the jewelry, even though I got a whole soapbox to stand up on. When you royalty, you gonna wear the jewels. I mean that, right? When that is your ancestral background, we're used to the jewels. We've never been without that from our birth, right? It's time to pay attention, and it's time to get back to where we are and take our rightful place. And if meritocracy, the advancement of political, what's the word I'm looking for? Advancement of political gain, if financial gain is all based on who is the best, then I think we failed the first test back on November 5th. And that's my 2 cents. So the views and opinions of this show are right. But that's my thought. And that's from a rational point of view. So we will continue serving up quality information, fact-checked information, even though it seems like fact-checking is not the move. That's me personally and professionally. I'm going to make sure that these things have passed through. But now is the time to refocus and double down on taking care of each other, because we just saw an executive order go out to remove the penalties of what happened on January 6th, but people are still sleeping outside, right? Someone woke up this morning sleeping under a bridge. And so I'm calling on all of you to make it about America versus everybody versus some against some Americans. That seems to me to be the most unpatriotic thing that could be. So with that thought, I say good morning, Milwaukee. Good morning, Wisconsin. Good morning, United States of America. And good morning, Earthlings. Right? So let's talk about it. 414-444-5250. Like I said, in the second hour, we will talk more about health, wellness. We'll make that connection with Henrietta Lacks in cervical cancer, but also just how to keep your mind right. So get into a book. Don't argue back and forth. Don't feed the trolls. Get into a book. Focus on you and what you need to be well. So we have a caller this morning. Greetings and good morning to you.
Good morning. Thank you. I was trying to. I didn't want to, get you in trouble about missing your break there. But good morning.
Good morning to you. How are you today?
Queen sister. Good morning. Ebony Ssali. Good morning. Good morning, man. Ride out. Good morning, Carvey, young brother, and good morning, Milwaukee.
Yeah, we got Debo in the studio.
Oh,
He's
okay.
holding it down.
Okay, well, that's,
He needs his good morning.
Yeah,
Listen.
yeah. Well, good morning, Mr. Debo. He's 58 now. He's 8 years younger than me, but
Uh-oh,
still.
looking about 25. That's that
Okay,
skincare.
well,
That's that skincare.
Don't lie to Debo. Don't lie to him. Don't lie.
That's that good and being unbothered.
That's between him and his lady he's got at home there. I can't touch that one. But yeah, Debo, good morning. Well, anyway, you know what? You talked about a lot of good, wonderful things this morning, and that's good because we've got to, and I need you to bring the, I know that you all at Outreach, but I need that there was a young man on there, because Medicaid, when you renew your Quest card, your medical gets renewed too. But now, see, I'm good on the Quest card till 2026.
Okay.
But my medical, they mess with that, So I'm thinking about just, I'm tired of messing around with them.
Well, so we have a whole benefits department, right? Mm-hmm. Like that's what they do is just figure out your situation and what best to utilize.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's good. That's wonderful. That's absolutely wonderful. And I'm going to need you for that because, they're talking about my Medicare and Medicaid is running short or running out. And, it should be a 5-year thing. I mean, year after year after year. I mean, and different things. If I'm good on my Quest card and it kind of slipped up on me. But I called yesterday and I got all these different push this button and the recordings and all this stuff. Man, I ain't fixing to mess around and play with all this little ignorant stuff, man. So just, if you got to take it from me, go on and take it. Then I'll manage. I'll do something. There was a young man on there, and Jermaine knows his name there too, and Kyrie do too. That somewhere through his organization there, they do the meta. The
Medicare and Medicaid.
Yeah, the health stuff. For no cost.
Gotcha.
I forget what the name, but it was a young man on there for about 2 or 3 days there. Jermaine knows who he is, and Kyrie knows who he is.
Okay, I'll ask during the break.
But I needed to get his number because I was asking for the number for somebody else's number of Dana World Patterson. But yeah, I needed his number for the health stuff too. So we'll get it together though. I'm in good health. I'm sipping on orange juice and tea.
Okay.
At the same time, so that's why I'm peeing a lot.
Okay, look,
but it's all right. You got to flush it out.
You do, and that's why I say protecting our health is going to be the utmost.
Absolutely.
Thing.
You got. That's the reason why you eat and drink. You drink and you eat, and it comes out the other end. You flushing it out.
Yeah, this is true.
But you know what? I just wanted to say. Well, there's the music. You want me to hold on, or you're gonna?
We'll do this. We'll get into our next segment.
Okay.
But call me back. I always love talking to you.
Have a great morning. Have a great weekend. Just in case I don't get back through.
Thank you. Appreciate you. Love you back. Thank you so much for listening and sharing those thoughts. You are listening to Community Heartbeat, presented by Outreach Community Health Centers. I am Ebony Ssali. We will be right back.
The passing of a loved one is emotional enough without adding the stress of funeral arrangements. By pre-planning, you receive the desires of your heart while taking away the burden from your family. It also saves you money, providing the dignity and respect your memory deserves. And there are times when life ends unexpectedly. Please know that the New Pitts Mortuary is here to lend a helping, caring hand anytime, day or night. We are the New Pitts Mortuary.
Gilbert at 26.
Welcome back. Community Heartbeat, presented by Outreach Community Health Centers. Not just a show, this is a movement dedicated to bringing our community together through wellness, keeping your heart pumping with positivity. I am Ebony Ssali, and we are all the way live in the new America, right? Mentioned earlier, Cervical Cancer Awareness Month made the connection with Henrietta Lacks. But let's get into this mindset, right? As I shared before, I am like an alchemistic optimist. So I believe in taking every opportunity to find the positive. But I'm curious, what's on your mind? What's on your mind? What's on your heart? How are you incorporating balance into the first week? And like I started the show with, this has been the longest year this week. I've been running around this week with a ton of events. That's kind of what I do. When I laid down last night, my body was exhausted. And I'm a fan of using like technology to track my health. So I track my sleep schedule. I track my eating schedule. I have reminders to drink water. I woke up this morning and my smartwatch said, your sleep was better than it has been all week. But it says something like, you are on your way to repair. It was like your sleep score was like 70 something. So for me, that's underachieving. That's not 100% sleep. So I am that particular. Like I'm trying to get 100 every night. But it said your body is in repair. And I was like, okay, so we preaching this morning to my spirit like that. The body is in repair. So I'm going to challenge us to think about this a different way. If you work out and you go to the gym often, you don't lift the same weight every day. You switch it up so that your body doesn't get used to that. You don't go to muscle fatigue on the same muscle every single day. You switch it up. So I would invite us to think about where we are right now as being in repair. The things that have been broken for decades and decades. This is our opportunity to repair it and not to use the negative that's breaking out around the country, like the fires and such. But sometimes when you have to start over from zero, you build it back better. You make it better than it has been. Right. So again, I'm going to challenge us to be like, look, this is going to shake everything to its core. We're talking, again, I've been online and looking at programs and looking at the implications. We have doctors in PhD programs, right, that have been dropped from their program because their focus has been on diversity. Right. Dropped from a program in education, which makes us smarter, which the reason I can't rationalize this is that makes America better. Like we are competing not against us internally. We're competing against a global economic base, right? We look at our clothing is manufactured elsewhere. And to be honest, if we want to talk about technology, our technology lives in India. Right? They have access to every phone. And I'm going to show you how. Because you get probably at least 2 calls a day, spam calls. Those originate outside of our country. So it should be America versus everybody. Like I feel like, in those sports analogies, we need the coach to be like, we are a team. It's time to rise up as a team. So right now we are getting in the gym as a country. We are repairing those muscles that are at fatigue. And I'm trying to add levity to it because I oscillate between this dude can't be serious. This can't be life. Cue Alexa play Jay-Z Scarface can't be life, right? And the other side of it is we can overcome anything. Like if you truly believe you serve God that's all powerful, like bring it. So I oscillate between the two. Like, this can't be life, and okay, bring it on. But talk back to me. Let me know where you are in that journey. 414-444-5250. What's on your mind, and how do you keep balance? So my watch is like, you're in repair. Go back to sleep. I made a plan this weekend to do absolutely nothing but read and rest. That's how I restore my balance. That's how I make sense of life. That's how I keep myself in a good headspace. And then just taking walks. So I'm not back to running yet, but I am focused on the things that are positive. So how are you bringing mindset into it? Debo, right out. What do y'all do just like when it's too much? Like you ever have it just be too much? What are you doing just to
ease your mind?
Yeah.
Well, for me, it's music. You know, I put on certain genres of music, that can help ease my mind. So I might listen to some old school Sam Cooke or
won't he do it?
Listen here, man, some music that'll bring you back. And kind of take your troubles away type thing. And that's for me. Or I might sit down at my piano and play. You know, that's a reliever for me. But I found weight, or even going to the gym.
Yeah.
You know, when I'm having a hard time and I'm frustrated and I want to punch somebody in their throat.
Yeah.
You know, throat.
Grab the bag.
Grab the throat.
Not throat, in the throat.
In the throat.
That's different. They mean it. Different. When they swing on you and hit you in the throat, they mean
it. And when you get hit in the throat.
Don't condone violence, but
hit the throat. Intentional there.
Yeah. You get hit in the throat, you mad. It ain't throat, it's throat. I go to the gym and I lift, so I can get that pressure up off me.
Yeah. That's what we have to. Like, it. Do not hold this energy inside. Now, I ain't gonna get all into because I get very woo-woo, as my people call it. I get into the holding energy, and how you release the energy is important. But don't hold this stuff in. Don't internalize this. This is a bigger fight than us, right? These are conditions that people have been indoctrinated with. And that's what they're giving us. So I released that. I'm like, hey, keep your racism over there, friend. Like that has nothing to do with me. My ancestors shine brightly, and I will continue to do so. And that rubs some people the wrong way, and I'm cool with that. Like I started with, I will take the most dire situations and try to make something good out of it. Because I'm like, come on, Judas. Come on, sit over here. Cause see, you gonna elevate me to where I'm supposed to be.
See, but this is what people have to realize. If you are a true believer, the scripture says he will prepare a table before you in the presence of your enemies. So in order for that table to be effective for that scripture, your enemies have to be present.
Got to be
so
present.
It's
preach that thing.
It's okay, man, that the country is going through what it's going through, because the peace and the table that God is preparing, you'll be able to eat comfortably, even though they looking at you and they.
Do you throw in a just for them?
I'll be like, listen here, man, this piece of steak I'm eating tastes so great. I wish you could have some, but you can't, because it's all mine, because this table is for me.
Set for me.
So this is for everybody, that with all this evil that's going around, the table that's been set, you're going to be all right.
Yeah, you're going to be. And you know who's eating peacefully right now? My beautiful sister, Kamala Harris. Oh, yeah. She is eating beautifully. Yeah. And let me just address, I think with mental health too, and the emotional well-being, I call him Dougie Fresh. I probably shouldn't. The second gentleman, Doug, has been a visible rock for her. And I'm gonna tell you two things that stood out. So if you check social media, you follow her on social, you can see she is oiling her scalp. She is refreshing her skin. She is moisturized. She is unbothered, but she is covered. At the funeral of Jimmy Carter, You know, they show the procession, all the former presidents, vice presidents coming in, having a seat. She looks at him, he looks at her. There are no words spoken, but they speak together. And I'm like, that is what is necessary. So there was another video that circulated for her of her and Doug shopping in a grocery store. And they just walking through the grocery store and being regular. And I thought, how refreshing is it that when a space isn't for you, you will have peace in that space that is not for you. Right? So they just there, they are chilling. So I'm going to say shout out to Doug. Shout out to the husbands who quietly support their wives, and vice versa. But we talking about Kamala right now. That show up, that create peaceful spaces, but provide covering. I'm going to say shout out to you. Thank you for being that space, because that is a mental safety zone. And we just need more of it. So I looked at it and said, I would have probably been somewhere, wig half on, under a blanket, crying my little eyes out puffy. You know how your eyes get puffy. And not being able to release that, because she gave us her all in the running. It felt like civility was leaving us. And I'm rising this above politics, right? This is above how you think the economic policy of the United States goes, how you think our attachment to foreign entities should be. This is about civility. Right. This is about the things that have been shared. You know, you do the right thing. You stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Right. But this is the demonstration of what that means to some Americans. This is now on the entire public stage. Now, if I were a rational person, I would say something like, if the flag causes people to push to stand, and the flag is something that we cherish, and the flag is symbolic of freedom and wealth and all of that, then imagine the pain when you saw that flag on January 6th treated as it was. And so if it's not hypocrisy, what is it? Let's name the thing, right? That weighs on people's mental health. When they don't know which way to go, and it's chaos and it's not the same rules applied, that weighs on people. So boundaries. It's time to set some quality boundaries. We have to decide what we will and will not put up with. And the boundaries of what gets us flustered. Growing up, my thought process was, if everything makes you angry, you can be controlled. If you get ticked off at every single thing, you are never focused on one thing. If somebody's words take you out of your character, you got to rethink your character, right? So for me, boundaries are real strong this next go round, because people aren't rational. People won't have a debate. I'm not shouting on anybody, and I'm not allowing anybody shouting on me. If you want to have a conversation and we have a debate and we talk about facts and reason, let's do that. If you want to be disrespectful and full of discord, you can do that, just not with me. And that's just as real as I can make it. I do want to give some resources, though, because my mindset is not everyone's mindset. If you are having challenges with what you are seeing, and that is sparking anxiety, and you're having challenges with what you're seeing, and that's sparking depression, I want you to reach out to a professional. I want to say that this is not the time for turning to negative ways to cope, because that is not going to be beneficial in the long term. So coping with drugs, coping with alcohol, coping with the mental distress, all of it is challenging. So you can do a couple of things. You can reach out to Outreach, 414-727-6320. We open at 8 a.m. So if you do try to get through in the next couple of moments, we're not open yet. You can give that a call. If you find yourself just like day in and day out. You can't exit the media cycle. You can go online, 988lifeline.org, and you can chat with mental health professionals. If you find yourself like, this just is not worth it for me anymore, I don't want you to be in that space. So this is big sister, little sister Ebony saying, I don't want you in that space. So a resource that you can utilize, 988, you can text that number and you can text someone to chat about what you're feeling. You're not going through it alone. You don't have to battle it alone. But again, we have been through this collectively in the United States for many, many years, and we're going to get through it. So it looks like Tyrone is back. Welcome back, sir.
You're so sweet. You like teasing and flirting with me.
Hey! Listen, my other gentleman callers might be listening. Don't hate the player now. Don't.
I'm gonna get a chance to come down there and sit with you on the show. I'm gonna do a whole show with you. Okay.
I got a sign up list.
Yeah. Get in line. Get in line, Tyrone W. Get in line, man. She got a list, bruh. Get in line.
I kid. Listen to my friends. I love you. I just want you to know.
I love you as well. Well, a couple of things. I'll give you the cervical cancer thing first.
Yeah.
It kind of leans over to. I just had an article in hand. Matter of fact, I got it. And I want to bring it in because I wanted to, some people to make the copies of it there, But the fibroids, they can get as big as grapefruit sometimes. Yeah. So that's especially for our black queens and sisters, So that's, the cervical, the uterus. So the fibroids, have a lot to do with a lot of that.
Yeah.
As well as other things. So a whole lot of that has to be unpacked there. What's causing the fibroids? Is there something in the sperm that's initiating, the fibroids, all that has to be, taken to the lab, and the scientists say, look at this, what's going on with all these fibroids growing and stuff there, and then the cervical and uterus and everything else. So that has to be looked at most certainly, because the article said that they cause a lot of pain, so I'm pretty sure that the sisters, go through a lot of pain.
A lot of women in my family, and I'm not going to drop all their medical history, but it definitely runs in my family.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, but that I want to put that out there, and then I'll leave with this here. Have a great day and a great weekend. But you were talking about now he's done all of that as the president, but what does that around the world? What does that make the courts and the judges look like? I've given a sentence already, and you done came back and rebuked that makes the judges look like real punks now. The courts too. Yep. So it's a mess, man. You done turned the whole judicial
system on its
upside down. The woman holding the scale with the blinds on, she's saying I couldn't see with this on, but I took it off and I still can't see.
She peeking. She got one little eye. She's peeking.
It's a real mess, but we'll figure it out, Queen. Love you. Have a great weekend.
You back. Have a great weekend. Stay warm. Stay safe. We were just briefly talking about fibroids during the break. And so I had made a comment about relaxers. So I stopped using relaxers probably a couple decades ago, at least a decade for sure. No, it's been 2, about the time my daughter was born, because fibroids are prevalent in my family. But some of the behaviors that we do, so we would keep our hair laid. Okay. So that's happening in my family. But I saw the connection and didn't do a lot of study, but I said, if that's one factor I can take out, let me take out. So
yeah, because I still see a lot of African American women still get relaxers and perms and all of that stuff. So is that stuff on the labels that it can cause cancer?
Well, think about it this way: it took how much legislation to get cancer warnings on cigarettes, right? I mean, there was a time in this country where doctors promoted nicotine. They said this is the cigarette that is going to open up your lungs. Wow. This is the cigarette that is going to open. So I tend to have, look, I got my voice all elevated. You got me high.
Come on with
because we talk about law and the things that are legal. This country makes laws every day. So the legality of things is not the issue. The morality of the thing is the issue. We had doctors supporting nicotine. This is the cigarette, ladies. Again, I grew up in the 80s, so it was like the Virginia Slims. This is the one that's going to keep you slim and trim, this cigarette, right? It's going to help curb your appetite so you don't eat as much. This was built into the fabric of our country, right? So to get back to your point about getting the label on healthcare or hair products, that's like an afterthought. And then you talk about the audience it's affecting. This is not affecting all women. This is affecting Black women, right? Yeah. And that wasn't a priority.
Yeah, so it's not a priority on the list of
right. You didn't have Black doctors to study it. You didn't have Black researchers to study it. So it just wasn't a priority. And I think we have to get back to people telling you are not a priority. Like, tell me to my face so that I'm not believing that you're protecting me. Yeah. Now, I'm gonna give you something to pay attention to in the next couple weeks, and I want you to make sure that you are in your senators' faces, right? We're gonna hit a midterm very quickly. The EPA. The EPA is the organization that monitors what's in the air and what's in the water, right? So if cancer-causing agents are out in your water, they're out in your air, and there's no one to monitor that, what happened? We get more cancer, right? And if we reduce the amount of cancer agencies in legislation for research, then we die. Like this is not hyperbole. I'm not trying to hype anything up. This is A plus B equals C, right? And that's not a policy piece. That's fact. So pay attention. So EPA is under the gun, the agencies for food. Now, again, I'm not pushing this from a political stance, but if things like E. coli and listeria, like the sandwich meat, if there's nobody watching over that, we get sick. Period. And so even if I had to make an economic argument, because again, I like debate, I like to talk about things from different angles. This is an economic issue. If we have 7 billion people on the planet and 5 billion of them die, that's problematic. Like that, numbers wise, that's problematic. So stay engaged. Don't check out. Make sure that you're thinking about how those come into play. Now, environmental components are also under fire. So pay attention. Get engaged, go online. For the opportunity that I'm able to, I will bring these up. But at the end of the day, protect your mental health, protect your mental wellness. If you do need resources and you are having a hard time through this, 414-727-6320. Get connected, whether that be primary care, whether you've got that pain that's bothering you, whether you need a psychologist to talk through it, whether you are pushed into drug use or abusing substances and you need to kind of get that under control. It does not matter. 414-727-6320 is the number to get connected. Talk back to me this morning, 414-444-5250. In the second hour, we'll be talking cervical cancer. We'll be talking about where we go forward with taking care of our health and being able to be well enough to have these conversations. Those environmental factors. We'll touch a little bit on the historical piece. So when we talk globally, what are some of the historical factors of wellness? We know some of these how do I want to frame it? Some of our ancestral connections cause us to be more susceptible to disease. Some causes us to be more well equipped. So we talked last time about sickle cell. Sickle cell is a body's immune system response to malaria. So I almost say our bodies are smarter than we are. They try to fight off diseases that sometimes we don't even see the connection with. But we'll just talk about that and what that means about you getting in and getting checked out. So we'll take a quick break. No break. No, we going straight. We going straight through. We gonna thug it out. Yeah. No, we can't be thugs in this time. We can't thug it in this time.
Hit them in their throat. That's what thugs do. Hit them in their throat.
And I'm telling you, the frustration. Like I said, mentally, I feel like I'm strong. Yeah. But man, I had to kind of sit with that thing this week just to say.
Yeah. No. Honestly, I think all of us had to, had that transparent moment. Like, okay, this is really happening. Yeah. This is the reality. Now, how do we deal with the reality of what we're living in? And just to see some of this stuff, and not to change the topic, but just what we were talking about earlier of how dealing with this new regime that's coming in, and how they is making it that you can go in churches and schools, and so you want to interrupt worship. You want to interrupt school and worship.
Well. I mean, the 60s showed us that even churches are not off limits to people who are bent on destruction. Yeah. Right? I mean, the 4 little girls.
You're right.
And for me, that's the part. And I try to dismiss racism. And when I say that, I mean, you can take me as a woman, I excel. You can take me as a Black person, I excel. You can take me as a person under 50, I consider that young, I excel. So I feel like I check the boxes on everything. But I also feel like historically, none of that has mattered. There were bombs put in churches, y'all. Like, that hurts my heart. You had adults shouting on children. And then we come up and we say, the babies are our future, protect them, which we must. We must. And so it's a time of reckoning. It's a time of reconciliation. It's a time of reflection. Like, really think about where we are and where we're going. And for me, my focus is the health and wellness. And I won't allow us to be sickened, to be worried. Those are things that take us out of being our absolute best. And you can take us to be Milwaukeeans. You can take us to be women. You can take us to be the educated, the talented 10th. You can take us to be whatever that us. I thought it was America versus everybody. Like, I had that ideology, is that we are pushing our children to be the smartest because they're going to compete against other countries for jobs. There's going to be a race to space. Remember when that was a thing? Wait, do you remember when being smart was cool?
Yeah.
Like, when that was the thing, like, how do we bring that back? So when we're competing against other countries to have the most output, to produce the most scholars, to be the economic engine of the world, what we're seeing might be a little different. And so I'm going to start with the very basic. That Michael Jackson, Alexa, play Man in the Mirror. I'm starting with me. Like, I'm making sure that I'm in tip-top mental health. I'm in tip-top physical health. I am learning and reading and absorbing the things that are positive. Because if energy is the thing, then what we get, we put out, we put out. It's a cycle. So with me, it's going to be positivity. With me, it's going to be good energy. I am going to figure out how to take every single negative that is thrown at me and make it work to my advantage. And we can go even back to the religious piece. You gonna need a Judas, but the table is still gonna be set in the midst of your enemies. And they're gonna have to watch you eat. So look, I won't disrespect by calling her Cam, but to the Madam Vice President, eat. Yeah. It's time to eat, and just take care of you. If you got a spouse that is shown up like Dougie has, love on your spouse today. Like, is love the answer? And then I went down the whole rabbit hole of the 70s, like peace and love. Like, because is that the only thing that's gonna get us through right now? Is just loving on each other. That's idealistic. I can hear my friends like rolling their eyes, like, here she go. She love and peace. He agrees. See, listen, go. You see how the answers were right there the whole time. The answers were there the whole time. So love on somebody today. Take somebody out for coffee today. Give people space. Be a safe harbor. I also thought back to how, like, intellectuals in the 20s, in the 30s, in some of our hardest times, they like passed the message that we gonna be all right in a speakeasy, or they passed it in somebody's house, or they passed it in those secret society organizations. They passed intelligence, knowledge, resources, love through those organizations. So we just gonna do that. So I hope that you come back every single 2 weeks. I mean, you're here every day, right? Because it's WNOV, but you're here every day, especially every 2 weeks. Come, join, talk to me. Talk back about how we build this community, how we keep our heartbeat healthy, and where we need to go from here. A couple other things before we bring in our guests. Immunizations are still available at Outreach. We are now moving into our unhoused population in cold weather preparation. So our team goes out every night to check on people, especially when it's, I got in the car this morning, car saying -1, then -3, then -8, then -10. People are sleeping outside, y'all. Okay, so you're looking for something you're able to do. You're feeling helpless. You're feeling like you can't. Yeah. You can get involved. So you can give us a call, 414-727-6320. You can get involved by going to our website and donating. But we will be right back. You are listening to Community Heartbeat, presented by Outreach Community Health Centers. Not just a show, this is a movement dedicated to bringing our community together through wellness. I'm Ebony Ssali. Keep listening. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Community Heartbeat, presented by Outreach Community Health Centers. Not just a show, this is a movement dedicated to bringing our community together through wellness, keeping your heart popping with positivity. I am Ebony Ssali, your host. And before we get into this next segment, I want to leave you with just a couple things you can do to reprioritize your mental well-being. I want to make sure we all get through this and we're all good. So I'm just going to hit you with a couple things. If you got your notebook ready, which you got to keep on this show because we're going to give you those resources. I want to make sure that you're good. So the first thing I want you to do is pick a goal that motivates you. Figure out what pushes you forward personally and professionally over this next year. Focus on progress, not perfection. To get there, sometimes people ask me, how you doing today? I'm like, forward motion. Sometimes just moving forward, even slowly, is still progress and it's still forward motivation or forward progress. Lean on others for support. You do not have to go through anything by yourself. So if it's not outreach, which, we should be there for you, 414-727-6320, find that support group that you can have those real conversations with, those transparent conversations with, and allow them to lift you up. Volunteer. This is a good time for us to give to somebody else, right? So I mentioned before, we are in frigid temperatures. Don't chase your tail of like, what can I do? I'll sit and wallow. Get out, volunteer for somebody else, volunteer at a soup kitchen, volunteer at outreach, pack some bags for the community. You can go online, ochc-milw.org. You can send socks, heating gloves, blankets to somebody else. That could be a positive thing. Like I said, for me, it's about energy. You keep putting out positive, and that's going to change. Make sure you're eating right. Listen, y'all, I went through the drive-thru yesterday. Full transparency, I had a burger. I felt like trash. I was like, oh man, like I felt heavy, greasy, right? So make sure we're eating right. Food affects our mood. Avoid processed and sugary foods in this time, and just practice gratitude. This week, as I reflected on my grandparents, my grandmother, my grandmama's mama who lived to 106, my grandmother who lived to 100, I was telling myself over and over how grateful I am for that lineage. And those were some bad women, right? Very quiet, which I didn't get that gene. But they were women who were very resilient. So practice that gratitude of where you are in your time and space, because no one is living that life for you. Now, with that being said, I got 2 doctors in the building today, y'all. 2 doctors. So the very first doctor we had, we started the show with talking about Henrietta Lacks and cervical cancer. We have Dr. Hillary French, who has been with us this time last year. She is our OB-GYN at Outreach. And I'm just going to tell you a little bit about her. Dr. Hillary French is a board-certified OB-GYN working at Outreach Community Health Centers. She was born and raised in Milwaukee. And medicine has always been the topic of discussion at the dinner table, with her father, who worked as a general and vascular surgeon, and a mother who worked as a nurse in radiation oncology. After spending time with her aunt, who passed away from breast cancer, she was motivated to embark on her own journey in the medical field, helping women. Dr. French went to undergrad at Xavier University in Cincinnati, Ohio. And after undergrad, she went to medical school at Meharry Medical College in Nashville, Tennessee. While at Meharry, she became interested in women's health and founded the Women's Health Club on campus. She then completed her OB-GYN training at the University of Buffalo in 2017. And after working at a private practice in Ohio, Dr. French decided to move back home to be closer to her family in Milwaukee. She started working with Outreach in 2019. During the pandemic, she was motivated to go back to school for her master's. So listen, doctor, and then go and get some more degrees. Her master's in public health. Dr. French knew she wanted to help address the disparities seen in healthcare, especially in the city of Milwaukee. And at Outreach, she is focused on community outreach with the launch of Step Up Divas, a wellness group targeting postmenopausal women. She also started, so she's a fire starter, the Cub Club pregnancy support group targeting pregnant and postpartum moms. Welcome to the show, Dr. French. Welcome back. Welcome back.
Ebony, I appreciate that. I'm glad to be with you on this cold January morning.
It's a little brisk. It's just a little gets the blood pumping.
Yeah.
But like I said, I got not one doctor in the building. I got two. So we got Dr. Tarun Thomas. And let me just read a bit about him. Dr. Tarun Thomas is a family medicine resident physician at the Northside Milwaukee Family Medicine Residency Program at MCW that practices at outreach community health centers. He was born in Chennai, India, where he finished med school and entered practice as a medical officer just prior to the onset of the COVID pandemic. He chose family medicine because it allowed him to build relationships with patients, while simultaneously addressing healthcare equity and disparities and being able to improve the healthcare outcomes of an entire community. He is passionate about improving access to care for his patients and helping people with substance use disorders in our community. And in line with the mission at Outreach, health is more than a physical state of being. He helps to address social determinants of health for patients and community. Welcome to the program.
Thank
Dr.
you so
Tarun
much
Thomas.
for having me on.
Listen, call and ask your questions from the doctors, okay? They're here in the studio, 414-444-5250 to connect with us this morning. Let's get into it, y'all, okay? When we talk about, let's first make that connection with cervical cancer, Dr. French. I brought up Henrietta Lacks and the testing that she went into Johns Hopkins for years ago. How do you, first off, what is cervical cancer and how do we screen for it?
Sure. So cervical cancer is an abnormal growth of cells on the cervix, which is the lowermost part of the uterus.
Okay.
And how we screen for it is by our routine pap smears that you'll get at your OBGYN. Okay. And depending on your age, this can vary in how often you get them.
Okay. So we're ladies. Hey, is this on? Ladies, we're going to get our lady parts checked annually. At the least.
Yes.
Annually
at the least. Okay. It's important to note that you might not always get a pap smear, though, at that annual visit because the guidelines have changed. So if you're 21 to 29, then it's every 3 years for the pap smear. Okay. And then after 30, there's the option of doing the pap smear with the co-testing for HPV. Mm-hmm. And that is every 5 years if they're normal. So,
now you just dropped a new acronym on me.
I know.
HPV.
So let me break it down.
Let me break it down for
you. So HPV stands for human papillomavirus. Okay. So that is sexually transmitted. It's more common than a lot of people think. Most sexually active adults will have it during their lifetime and adolescence. So
wait, now everybody's getting it.
So it's very common. So up to 70% of people who are sexually active during their lifetime will have HPV at some point. One thing to know about HPV, the body does clear it. It can take up to 2 years, but it's important to get these regular routine screens because you might be at risk of developing abnormal cells, which can progress then to cervical cancer.
See how it mattered? That look right out is like the weather. That's why we're here, right out. That's why we're
because it can be very confusing because they do, every few years they do update the guidelines. So we want to make sure that our patients and listeners are informed when to come in. So we do start screening at the age of 21. So ladies, if you're 21 and haven't gotten a PAP, make sure to make an appointment.
Right now, 414-727-632. She just said it's in the body. It's kind of hiding out in there. It's like that shingles, right? It could be in there. It could be in there. So get checked out. I make levity of it because I don't want anyone to feel like there's so much that we have to pay attention to, but we do have to pay attention to this. So how long is that appointment? So I come in, I'm getting my annual, or I'm in between, or I haven't had a pap smear in the last 5 years. So I just want to create a time to do that. How much time should I take? Is that a regular office visit? Is that an hour? Is that 17 hours? How long does that take?
It's a regular office visit. So I would, just the way sometimes, offices, I would give yourself an hour of time. The visit itself doesn't take that long. It usually takes about 30 minutes or less, depending on the patient, if they have any complaints. The exam itself is really, really fast during that time, so less than 2 minutes. So
how long does it take me to get my results?
So it can actually take up, depending, about 5 to 7 days.
Okay. So do this before the next month is out, make that appointment and get in so that you can get those results. There's a global holiday that's coming up. I'm just saying, just before February 14th, get yourself checked out. Okay. Do that for yourself and for your loved ones. Let me ask about how prevalent cervical cancer is. Are we still looking at those same rates? And then Dr. Thomas, let me ask you, in the residency program, how you, once you get that screening back, what should we be looking for in that long-term care? So 2 questions. The first one for Dr. French. What are some of those rates of incidence in the African-American, Hispanic population, Latino population?
Sure. So if you're looking at a population, say, of 100,000, so for Black women, that would be 8.4 out of 100,000. And if you're looking at Hispanic women, the incidence is actually a little bit higher, 9.6 out of 100,000 women. And then for white women, just to kind of give you a comparison, it's 7 out of 100,000. So the rates are higher in Black and Hispanic women.
Okay. I mean, again, so we got to pay attention. So let's say they get the screening results back. Talk to me, Dr. Thomas, about what that treatment plan might look like. So, and we can even expand that to all screenings. Someone tests positive for a particular condition. Is that something that you're taking care of in those regular visits as they come back to outreach?
So in terms of us as primary care, we do our pap smears as well. Okay. The other thing we do talk about is also getting vaccinated against HPV.
Okay.
Not a lot of people know it. The latest recommendation started as low as age 9.
Okay.
But catch-up vaccination, usually the current recommendation from the CDC is up to age 26 because it's more effective before someone gets an HPV infection, but we can do catch-up up to age 45.
Okay.
In terms of the results, depending on what we see on your cells, we may need to refer you to Dr. French or an OBGYN to further biopsy your cervix. That would be the worst case scenario.
Okay.
What usually ends up happening in most women, it's either normal or it's what we call ASCUS, which is undetermined significance, which just means you just need a pap smear again within the next year, just to make sure that everything's clear, just to make sure everything's
to double
okay.
check, make sure. Okay.
And as part of just our general screenings, it is kind of just packed into your annual wellness visit, and it's kind of just something that I would recommend that everyone talk about, but also remember that it can be uncomfortable.
Right. And but listen, things are going to get uncomfortable around here. So making time to do that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
And just sometimes voicing your concern with your provider beforehand. That it's absolutely fine sometimes to tell your provider, hey, so I've heard about this, but I'm nervous about this. It's absolutely fine. Yeah.
That's where having that notebook, having those questions, understanding the prevalence. And so if you walk away from this show with anything, and the whole purpose of this show is that you should know which questions to raise. You should know which concerns are at the forefront. The information presented on this show is never meant to like scare you into making decisions, but these are like factual pieces. There are some people, demographics that have a higher incidence of these diseases. So it's us at Outreach saying, these are concerns you need to be looking at. These are the questions you need to ask, and not to be afraid to bring your notebook to your appointment. Like that's what we want. And if those conditions are changing, if you notice different things about your body, bring that in. So the HPV, you got that, put that in your notebook, the symptoms, the detection, the rates that are available there for us. Let me ask other conditions about women. I mean, since we're here, we got two physicians that are here. What are some things that, let me ask it a different way. What do you wish your patients knew when it comes to caring for their bodies, screenings, and listening to your advice? Right? Because that's the other piece. Sometimes we go and we're like, the doctor said I got to take this, and the doctor said I got to work out. What kind of person does this doctor think? What do you wish your patients knew about care?
I think bringing it back to the cervical cancer discussion is just how preventable that cervical cancer is. So with the introduction of the pap smear, cervical cancer rates have declined by up to 50-60% in the United States. So it's something that if we are on top of, this can be easily prevented. And as he mentioned, the vaccine is also really important, and just those two together can significantly reduce rates of cervical cancers in our communities. So if you're not sure, ask a friend, if say like, okay, when are you getting your annual women's exam? Ask your aunt, ask your sister, just to be on top of each other as a community, to because another important point is that Black women have the highest mortality rates of cervical cancer. So they're 60% more likely to die of cervical cancer than white women, and Hispanic women are 20% more likely to die. So we definitely have to make sure to get to the doctor's office. We also have to address the barriers in medicine, including insurance coverage, access to care, for the betterment of our health in the community here in Milwaukee.
So listen, we don't have to die. How about that? Like we don't, that is not, it's not a mandatory sentence. So we have to get better. So make the appointment right now. Do it right now. 414-727-6320. Schedule your annual Well Woman, get the pap smear, get the HPV vaccine. Anybody 9 and up should be getting that vaccine. So when we come back, we will talk more things medicine, and where medicine is going in the next year. So we will be right back. You are listening to Community Heartbeat, presented by Outreach Community Health Centers. We'll be right back.
The passing of a loved one is emotional enough without adding the stress of funeral arrangements. By pre-planning, you receive the desires of your heart while taking away the burden from your family. It also saves you money, providing the dignity and respect your memory deserves. And there are times when life ends unexpectedly. Please know that the New Pitts Mortuary is here to lend a helping, caring hand anytime, day or night.
W293CX 106.5 Milwaukee.
Welcome back to Community Heartbeat, presented by Outreach Community Health Centers. Not just a show, this is a movement dedicated to bringing our community together through wellness, keeping your heart popping and pumping. I think I'm going to have to rewrite this with positivity. I am Ebony Ssali, your host. I'm in the studio today with Dr. Hillary French, OBGYN at Outreach Community Health Centers, and Dr. Tarun Thomas, medical resident MCW and Outreach Community Health Center. So welcome back to you both. Physicians, knowledge, education, facts, reason. They got all of that, right? And they do well at what they do. So before we move on to the next component, I just want to ask, what are the symptoms of cervical cancer? Just so we know in our little notebook that we're keeping, what should we be on the lookout for?
A good question, Ebony. So vaginal bleeding after intercourse is a symptom of cervical cancer. Vaginal bleeding in between your periods. Any pelvic pain with intercourse can be also a symptom of cervical cancer. It's also important to know that earlier stages of the disease, women can be totally asymptomatic. So that's why, again, we bring it back to make sure you get your checkup, ladies, okay?
And just go in. Like it's go in. Make your appointment. 414-727-6320. So when we talk just medicine in general, I started the show with, taking care of ourselves, being well, treating ourselves well. Let me ask you both, in your pursuit of medicine, so you decided to go to medical school, what drives you? Like, what is your passion for medicine? I know I read in your bios, a lot of this is from your family. So I love that medicine is a conversation, but I'm interested to learn just a little bit about you and what pushes you in medicine.
Well, for me, I think it's the service to others and dedicating your career to helping those in need. That has kind of been the main driver in my career, especially in terms of not just care, but also education and making sure that women not know just, what tests we're ordering, but why we're ordering them. Because sometimes when you go to the doctor, we have to be careful just, spilling acronyms without explanation.
Because we're nervous and we're like, what is that? What does that stand for?
You'd be that gap in between people's questions, I think, in addressing those needs is why I keep doing what I'm doing and why I was led to the point I am now.
All right, Dr. Thomas.
Yeah, so I think for me it started at home too. My older sister's a family doc in the UK.
Yeah.
Really nice to have that role model early on. But once I got to med school, one of the really big things that drew me to family medicine is just how much more than just being a healer, you can also just be a listener and an advocate for your patients. And I think that sometimes being able to empower your patients with both knowledge, breaking down barriers of distrust, and helping people find that stability in their life, I think that's kind of what drives me every day.
It's personal mission. And for me, I always look at, you want professionals in your circle, especially in your care circle, in your health circle, that have a passion for what they're doing. And, because it's not always easy to eat the right food. It's not always easy to get up and move. But when you have someone that can explain it to you and like you said, help to heal, help to be that advocate, is passionate, this is what you were born to do, that changes the conversation. You know that they have your best interest at heart. So I absolutely love that. In the change, so you made it through medical school, and I joked during the break, I have watched 20 seasons of Grey's Anatomy, so I feel like I should be Dr. something. But people are like, nah, that's not how this thing works. So you all have gone through med school. You are practicing medicine every day. How do you balance just life. When life be lifing, as the kids say, how do you balance that with caring for others? How do you restore yourself since you're restoring others on a daily basis? How do you do that?
I think finding time to do your favorite activities and making sure you stick to it, whether that be spending time with your significant other, like me and my husband, like go out to the movies or go out to dinner, making sure also to go out when it's warmer.
Yeah, amen.
Go for walks, to kind of take a time after clinic, decompress, and making sure, because we've all been guilty of that, where you skip those moments, and then that's when things start to pile up. So making those times to do those important activities to connect.
Love it.
Yeah, and I think at my end, it's the first thing for me is usually trying to find as much meaning as I can from work.
Okay.
I think that helps a lot because as a resident, I spend a lot of time at work.
Yeah.
Second thing for me is when it's warmer, yes.
Yeah.
Love going out for walks. Just probably not right now. And the other thing I do right now, what I've been trying to do, is just trying to practice gratitude. Just trying to think about things I'm grateful for, things that I've got going for me.
Yeah.
And some days it's harder than others when you have a bad day, but forcing yourself to sometimes have that perspective is really nice.
Yeah. I started the show with saying I am an alchemistic optimist. Like, I try to find the silver lining in everything. I try to find the positive spin on everything, and just use that as fuel to always put out good energy. I have the friends that are like, oh, she's going to try to find a bright side to this. But I think there's something valuable in that mental exercise to try to find the good. And if history serves me in my own personal life, things work out. Like, sometimes we don't know how they work out, but they do. Let me ask a question, and I know this wasn't on my list, so please don't cut me.
Oh, no.
But in terms of stress, right? So stress, just life stress. How does that play out in health, right? Is there a connection between the more stress you have, those things show up in the body? I'm hoping the answer is yes. So, like, we got to figure out how to reduce stress so that it doesn't show up in our bodies. But just give me an idea of maybe what we should be looking for. Does the body have tells when it's too stressed? Because I think we all might be, we more demands at work, financial implications, right? Substance use is up, right? And for me, not being a doctor, but with my limited evidence and research, people do tend to use drugs more when they're stressed out, right? So how do we reduce that? Anything? Give us something, doctors. Yeah. That's what I'm looking for. Give me something to make it through.
You bring up a very good point about stress, because stress can affect chronic conditions. It can affect anything from diabetes, high blood pressure, and even in the OBGYN world, it can affect chronic pelvic pain conditions like endometriosis. So it's really important that we do address stress. It's really important to, if you haven't, connect with a behavioral health, whether that be through a counselor, to provide those stress management tips. You can talk to your primary care doctor if the stress is to a point where you think you might need additional, counseling. So we definitely need to, in our overall treatment of chronic conditions, also address the underlying stress and address also underlying loneliness as well, because those all affect our overall health and our longevity. So
yeah, agreed.
Yeah, I think on my part on that this is why I advocate that everyone needs a therapist. Everyone needs a counselor.
Listen, like, I don't care who you are, top, bottom, in the middle, you need a therapist.
Absolutely, because there's a number of times where I just recommend it to people and they ask me, what are you telling me? And I'm like, no, this is not a situation I'm saying. It's just about therapy is not just for people who have mental health disorders or need a little bit more help. Everyone could use a therapist to talk to. And if you're not sleeping, if you're not eating or you're eating too much, you need to be talking to your doctor about that, because that's something I'd want to know. I want to know what's going on in your life. And I feel like, leading back to the point that you had earlier about substance use disorders, I think the other thing I'd really like to bring up a lot is understand that the clinic is our place of healing. It's a safe space. It's not a space for shame. I want you to
say that again.
Yeah, it's not a space for shame. We want to be there to give you that stability and help you on your journey. And it doesn't matter. You're not defined by your worst day. And you're not defined by your illnesses. And if you're coming in, that's what we're trying to do, is just get you back on the right track. And it doesn't matter if you fall off the horse. We just got to keep getting back on.
Ooh, that's a word. Listen, you made it right out.
And we definitely have to address that stigma. Because sometimes people, well, I don't have that, or I don't really need that. But, what they're telling you, though, is they could definitely benefit from like a therapist.
Listen, I've shared that. I'm an advocate. Things opened up for me just to share. Sometimes you just need a professional to help you connect the dots. And I like to say that for me, therapy is for everybody. And sometimes I find myself in therapy talking about things for folks that should be in therapy, right? But I love that. No stigma, no shame. The same with your body. If you look at the body, it's like a machine. Sometimes the machine has a defect, or something is not working in its optimal state. That's what the clinic is for. And so I think what outreach has really found its niche in is some of that barrier has been financial. Like, I don't want to go to a therapist because I don't have the money to spend. I don't have time to be at the sessions. I got to be at work. For me, I'm going to say that's the exact time when you should be there. Sometimes we skip these health screenings because we say things like, I don't have time to go, or it's going to be expensive. The prevention is a lot less costly than the outcome. So before you have that prevention piece. So before you get the heart attack and you get the emergency room bill and the this and this, you pay for the office visit to get your hypertension in check. Before you have the amputation because you're losing limbs because you have diabetes that's been untreated for so long. Go in and get your sugar checked. And they're going to tell you probably shouldn't be eating, Fritos, Cheetos, and all the other things for breakfast, washing it down with Mountain Dew. They're going to tell you that, but it's not a place for shame. They just want you to keep your feet, right? They want you to keep those limbs and restore yourself back to optimum health. So I love that. Not a place for shame, place for healing. And again, it goes back to these professionals having a passion for that. This is what they do for a living. I want you both to tell me something a little on the lighter side. What's one thing that brightens your day about working with patients? Or if you've had a patient that just kind of put a smile on your face, right? Can you think of an instance or an example? I will say, and as you're thinking about that, I'll give you a little space to think about that. Growing up, my OB or my gynecologist, because you can't have an OB growing. That's crazy. But my gynecologist had actually delivered me. Right. So we would talk like, he's like, oh, I was there from day one. I know you kids talk about day one, but I'm like a true day one. I was there to deliver you. Right. That for me was like, it was a connection with my physician. Right. He ended up retiring. I was like sad. So like you can't leave. But having that connection with your care provider, I think is so important. I played sports at the time. So he'd be like, are you still terrible in your sport? I'm like, yeah. Right. Had that connection. What's one thing you both love about just that patient care, that interaction? And is there one maybe story that comes to mind about that?
I definitely think picking back off that connection, just in my practice, being able to see women throughout their lifetime and the highlights of their life, seeing them, what makes me excited is seeing a pregnant mom come back for their next pregnancy, and just seeing how, they've evolved from the very first pregnancy to the next one, and all the different changes, and seeing them with actually, bringing in their little one when they're pregnant with their next one. It's just amazing to see.
Family.
So definitely, that's been one of the highlights, working at outreach in my practice.
Okay, Dr. Thomas.
Yeah, so I think one story really stands out to me was kind of from when I was a first year resident. I had this gentleman come to me, hadn't seen a doctor in about 20 years, untreated high blood pressure, had a stroke a few months ago, came in. Just between our first and second visits, the change, because the second visit he came in, quit smoking, was taking his meds, brought his son to the visit, brought his young baby son, and he said, I want my son to see and be proud of me and see that I'm working on me. And I don't know, I love building that relationship with him and just understanding what that meant to him, trying to get his life back on track in terms of his physical health.
Yeah. So important. So I know New Year's people make their resolutions and there's a long laundry list of things. I'm going to stop smoking. And I would hope that the advice would be, one day without smoking is a good day. Some folks out don't want to drink. One day without drinking is a good thing, right? So from the New Year's resolutions, tell me, what's one positive thing you can say if you only do one thing in 2025? What's that one thing to get on the healthy path?
I think, for me personally, something that I'm trying to incorporate is more meal prep.
Okay.
Just because when you don't have that plan throughout the week, sometimes that reverts to like the drive,
eating the burgers, and then you feel like junk.
Then you feel like so having that plan going and making sure, not only do you prep meals but also snacks in between, and incorporating, both healthy fruits and then protein, so you can sustain, fullness throughout the day, so you're not having those crashes, especially when you're having a long day at work.
Amen.
Yeah, I think for me it would be try to find one happy place for you this year. Try to find, could be a sport, could be just somewhere you walk, maybe when it's not this cold.
Yeah.
But yeah, just try to find one happy space where you can have that mental space for yourself sometimes.
Got it. So we're meal prepping and we're just getting out and doing that one thing that we absolutely love. That's going to get us through. So I love that. So we have a caller. Greetings and good morning. Welcome to Community Heartbeat.
Please forgive me for being the
Good morning. Would you introduce yourself? Introduce
yes,
yourself
please.
To our guests.
And good morning to the doctors. I would love to hear from both of the doctors. Good morning, Tyrone W. speaking, Dr. French and Dr. Tarun. It's what God has given us. The world, be plentiful, reproduce. But I mean, we're in a sexual climate as far as the world is concerned. The HPV as well as the cervical. I have to go there.
You're going to take us there, aren't you? Going to take us there. So save me time to clean it up. Because
you've heard, you may have heard, if you eat your cells will eat you. And basically that's what cancer cells are actually doing. Is there any way to reverse the process? Especially, you love a young person, she looks so good, man, I want to eat her like a Tootsie Roll. So
the FCC is still alive and kicking, and how they feel about their licenses for things like that, right? So let me clean up his question. And thank you for calling. We appreciate that. Are there things you can do to reverse or combat cervical cancer? Right? Are there things you can do once it's kind of set in?
So if there is if you have an abnormal pap smear, and then OBGYN will recommend to do a procedure called a colposcopy.
Now what?
I know. Let me break it down.
Please do.
Colpo just means cervix, and anything with endoscopy just means looking at.
Okay.
So looking at the cervix. So basically you go to the office and it's almost like a tall microscope.
Okay.
And say once you have a biopsy during that procedure, it shows abnormal cells that need to be removed. So then you would go and have what we call an excision procedure to remove the abnormal cells. And this is before it gets to be invasive cancer.
Okay.
Now, in terms of invasive cancer, that's just a lot more in that process that when we would refer you to a gyne-oncologist and they would work with you to have a treatment therapy, and that can consist of surgical management as long as radiation chemotherapy. So
so once it's kind of in process, so you want to prevent it first.
You want to prevent it first,
and exactly. Then if it does grow, so to speak, then there are some things that you can do.
Exactly.
And then it can spread though. So the concept, the takeaway, Milwaukee, get the screenings, get the vaccination. That is much easier, quicker, less expensive than the cancer treatment will be. So make it a point to just do it. Just schedule it, get in and do it. For not only for your own sexual health, but for the family and the legacy that you're going to leave behind. So we want to make sure that you do that. We're open all day, 8 to 5. Right.
We do have late hours.
And we got late hours. Okay, we like this. We like this. We like this. Anything else you want to share and leave Milwaukee with things to think about? So you shared your wellness practices, practicing that gratitude, eating well, meal prepping. You've shared your passion for medicine. Anything else you want to leave Milwaukee with? Things to think about? Put in that notebook. Yeah.
I think it's just kind of what we talked about with the wellness, just finding that one thing and not to get overwhelm yourself. Sometimes in the beginning of the year, we have all these resolutions. We're trying to get to the gym at 4:30 in the morning. It's just kind of being, be patient with yourself, give yourself grace, in terms of trying to hit those goals and try to do one thing well and keep working on it through the rest of the year.
Yeah, I think if I had to say one thing, it would be ask as many questions as you want, as you can. Knowledge is power, and having the power to choose for your own body is really important. And
so my doctor won't be irritated if I come in with my question?
Absolutely not. I would love to know where your mind is at and what you'd like to know.
That's a good thing so have that notebook. Treat your body like a machine. Know what's going into it. Know what you're expecting out of it. If you have the technology, get a smartwatch, get a Fitbit, learn how you're sleeping, learn how you're eating. Get that information and that you can share with your doctor. One thing we talked about in one of the other shows was outreach, having my chart and being able to keep, those test results at the forefront. You both use my chart, so you can communicate with your patients that way. Do you both use technology? Let me just ask that again. I know I'm totally off script, but do you use your smartwatches, your Fitbits? And do you think that's helpful? Like, does my doctor want to know that I slept okay last night, but my body is in repair? Do you all want to know that when I show up for my visit?
I think it's good just to have a baseline knowledge. So if especially if that person is working towards weight loss, just to know their average steps can be helpful, because a lot of us is in the United States, all over the country, are more sedentary in terms of not being as active. So just kind of taking that, okay, your baseline steps is 2,000. Let's get you to 3,000, 5,000. Let's say maybe 10,000 right away. You don't hear that 10,000 right away. But if you're just right now at 2,000, that could be a jump for you. So if you feel okay, well, how do I get there? Is it parking farther away? Is it taking the stairs? So it does kind of give us a good kind of outside data in terms of
starting
what the
point.
Starting point. Yeah, exactly.
I like that. Any additional you want to share with Milwaukee?
I'd say it's a good investment into your own health. Just kind of getting more aware of your own body. I know that the Apple Watch is FDA approved on the EKGs, like it can detect AFib, which is an irregular heart rhythm.
Okay.
But yeah, I think it's a good way just to add on to what Dr. Friend said, just getting more steps, trying to see more of what you're doing. You know, there's other options. There's Whoops, there's Aura Rings, there's so many things in the market right now.
So track it. Bring that data in with you. Dr. Hillary French, Dr. Tarun Thomas, thank you so very much for sharing your knowledge, your expertise, your passion with Milwaukee. Greatly appreciated. You can make your appointment 414-727-6320. Make sure you follow us on all your social media channels to get the behind the scenes, to learn what screenings we are focused on that particular month. We've got Dine with Docs coming up March 19th. We will be at the Gathering on March 15th. And then we have our Community Health and Resource Fair slated for August 9th from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. You can connect and sponsor any of those particular programs. So make sure you follow us and learn more about what we're up to. You can donate to those neighbors in our community that are unhoused and are battling cold. Make sure you're taking care of yourself. Like I started the show, if you find yourself stressed, you feel like you cannot handle it, we have those professionals that are there and at the ready to assist at Outreach Community Health Centers. Thank you for going on this journey with us, Milwaukee. Again, totally committed to your health and well-being. So we'll put our foot on the gas when necessary. We'll rest when we need to. Make sure you listen to your body. Make sure you get in for those screenings. You will hear us next on Friday, February 14th, where we're talking about love, your heart and your feet. That's what we're talking about, your heart and your feet. We will have our podiatrist here on the station. So we'll be talking about all things from the tippy top to the bottom of the soles of your feet. Thank you so much for listening to Community Heartbeat, presented by Outreach Community Health Centers. Not just a show, this is a movement dedicated to bringing our community together through wellness, keeping your heart pumping and popping with positivity. I'm Ebony Ssali. We will see you next time.